This is Beer in Front, part of the Beer Media Group. Every week I'll talk to people in and around the beer world and get their stories all about beer. That's Beer in Front, and it's coming up now. Welcome to episode 241 of Beer in Front. I'm your host, Dave Zalatoris, and Beer in Front is a charter member of the Beer Media Group. I got to apologize now. I've been fighting a cold for the last week or so if I don't sound my normal self, that's why. Good show today. I talked to my friend, Christina Rose. You may know her on social media. She's a travel nomad. We're going to talk about beers from Puerto Rico. So if you're going to escape the cold, stay tuned. Christina Rose is your hookup for great beer to try while you're there. I've been posting over on TikTok and Instagram. I did last week the Beer in Front Macro Challenge, where I tried blindly all of the macros, plus I did a local one from Alarmist just to see how that stacked up. And I'll tell you now, Schlitz thankfully was the winner, because that's the beer I usually drink, so I'm glad I was justified in my Schlitz fandom. In my taste buds, Schlitz was the best, although Alarmist, the one that they have put head and shoulders above all the rest. I'm going to do maybe the next month or so. A lot of craft breweries are doing their version of a macro, so I'm going to have maybe 5 or 6 different ones locally here from the Illinois area and try those and see how they stack up. There will not be a show next week. My sisters-in-law are coming in town. They're coming in from LA. They're going to spend some time with us. So I don't think I'm going to have time to get an episode out next week. So you're going to have to wait 2 weeks for the next Beer in Front. One last thing before we start the show. Some jamoke tried to scam me last week. Sent emails that they want me to promote their product, all of this. And it looked pretty good at first, but there were some tells that made me say, no, this is bullshit. But they were going to, the offer was they were going to pay me $3,500 a month to promote this product. And I'm thinking, that's really too good to be true. So I started doing some digging overnight. Now, they emailed me at night after I had a couple beers. So initially I'm thinking, well, who wouldn't want to partner with Beer in Front? But as I woke up and did a little more research, I'm like, oh no, this dude's a scammer. So I worked him all day. I mean, this was brilliant. We're back and forth. And, finally I emailed the person back. I'm like, would you like to know how you failed and how you could be successful as a scammer? If so, please send $500 to my PayPal account and I will help you become a better person in life. And I don't think the person appreciated it. They replied back that this is the first and only time they've ever done that. The person's down on their luck. And if I could send them $20 on PayPal, that would help feed their family. Dude, get the F out of here, you clown. Good thing I didn't, get all too enthusiastic about it. But be careful out there, folks. I've got a deal for Beer in Front listeners. Ritual Zero Proof is a line of non-alcoholic spirits that I think are really good. Now, I haven't tried them all, but they have a tequila, a whiskey, a gin, an aperitif. I've tried the gin. I did a video on this. I thought it was really good. I made a gin and tonic. But if you go to ritualzeroproof.com, use the code in the cart, you're going to save yourself 16% Plus, I get a little cut of this, so it helps the show out. So you win if you want to try something non-alcoholic, and the show wins. So check out ritualzeroproof.com. Use the code in the cart. I'm going to try some of their other products. I want to try their whiskey. I want to try the rum, and especially the aperitif. But once again, I tried the gin. I went out and bought this on my own because I don't want to put an ad out that it's something I don't like. So I tried this for myself. I really liked the gin. So if you're looking for something for dry January, or you just want to cut back the alcohol consumption a little bit, check out ritualzeroproof.com and use my code in the cart. In beer and beverage news, Coors Light puts out ads at Times Square and everything. They misspelled a word. So the big ad was mountain cold refreshment. They misspelled refreshment. So someone needs to do a better job of proofreading. The Surgeon General for now, they're calling for an added cancer risk. They want a health label on alcoholic beverages, and they want people to reassess the limits for consumption. So I don't think that's going to pass, but the Surgeon General is saying you should watch out for the amount of alcohol you have. Oh, there's some exciting beer news in Chicago. Steep Ravine Brewing, which used to be Ravinia. Now, they announced last month when they did the name change that they were going to close the Logan Square tap room. But now they're going to reopen with a new partner, Moore's Brewing out of Chicago. So this is super cool. I'm looking forward to it. They're going to call this Diversity House. So it's going to be like a sports bar, a tap room, and Steep Ravine and Moore's are both going to be brewing there. So that's super cool. I'm looking forward to checking this out when they open this up next month. So stay tuned. Check out Diversity House, featuring the great beers of Steep Ravine and Moore's. All right, welcome back. I'm so happy to finally be talking with my next guest. Love Christina Rose is a travel and beer nomad who you might know on Instagram as Travel and Beer Lover, and for her Freshie Friday. Now, she's the smart one, while I and the rest of the clowns are putting out lawn chairs for dibs in Chicago. Christina's dipping her toes in the sand in Puerto Rico right now. Christina, thanks so much for chatting today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dave. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk about Puerto Rican beer.
Yes. Before we get started, you okay over there? You need me to FedEx you a space heater or anything like that?
I feel like I should be asking you.
Yeah.
Maybe send some fans. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm jealous now, and I work for an airline, but I'm still jealous looking at all of your travel pictures that you and your partner put out. How does one get to be a nomad?
Yeah, that's a good question. We, honestly, we both really love travel, and we'd been dating for a little while and me and my partner have been living long distance. He was living in New York and I was living in Chicago. So keeping up a relationship is a little more difficult, although you will know it working for an airline. There's lots of flights between Chicago and New York. So we saw each other regularly, but both were kind of itching to get out and see more and explore more. So just kind of took the show on the road. Luckily, our jobs are both remote. So I work a typical 9 to 5 every weekday. And it just allows me to work remotely. So get to choose places like Puerto Rico. And for me, typically, I don't like the cold and the snow and everything. So as much as I can avoid that, that's definitely always my goal. So just taking it on the road.
How long are you going to be in Puerto Rico for?
Yeah, so we got here on December 1st and we're currently booked through March 1st. Okay. So it'll be a full 3 months. So we still have almost 2 full months here. And we spent about 6-7 weeks last winter, like January, February here as well. So I just loved it so much. And so we decided to come back.
Yeah, like that area has been through so much in the last 10 years. Have they recovered from Hurricane Maria? What was that, back in 2017, I think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's still definitely, a lot of destruction, and you'll see, just jumbles of power lines or things like that. That's not, I think probably, up to code maybe. But I think in general, we are actually just talking about this, that it seems like the island's very lively. People are out, people are doing things, new businesses are opening all the time. So I feel like it's definitely, especially, I think, Hurricane Maria and then the pandemic kind of pushed it back down again, So kind of in the last few years, I feel like those really been picking up. I obviously I wasn't here before Maria, so I can't necessarily compare personally, but just from the attitudes of people, people still talk about it, but they talk about it as like a, well, thank goodness now we're here kind of a thing.
Now, are you staying in San Juan proper or outside?
Yep, yeah, in San Juan, in an area called Santurce it's a big main area in San Juan.
Like, how is the beer scene there? Because I see you posting beer pictures. So what kind of beer scene is there in San Juan?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's, I guess I brought some examples. Well, I just have one real example, but I would say the biggest beer that you will see everywhere is called Medalla Light. And this is just what I would call the macro equivalent, although it is still a like family owned brewery, but it's like the macro of San Juan or of Puerto Rico as a whole. So that's the beer that you'll see everywhere, kind of no matter where you go. That's everywhere. And then around San Juan, I guess all around the island, I guess I will say there is a Instagrammer called Craft Beer Generation, and I think his content's all in Spanish, but he keeps up with like everything. He's very on top of, new breweries coming out and opening and things. So there are 24 breweries on the island, and 19 of which you can visit. So a lot of those are in San Juan or in this kind of the metro area, but a lot of them are kind of spread out as well. So you can definitely get craft beer, I would say most places, but they don't always have a huge selection, kind of depending on where you're going. But there's a lot of good local craft beers around here. One of the biggest ones you'll see is called Ocean Lab Brewing. So they have one of my favorite beers, which is Mambo. It's a passion fruit wheat beer, and it's just delicious. Very, very tropical island appropriate.
What are some of the other breweries that you would suggest for like people to hit up if they're traveling there, this winter?
Yeah, definitely. So like in San Juan, there's I would kind of put two different categories. There's Old San Juan, which is often where people go, when you travel here. It's a really cool area, and it's got all of the, old buildings, buildings that are 500 plus years old, like all kinds of things like that. So that in that area, there is a beer bar that's really, really popular called La Taberna Lupolo. So it's like the Hoppy Tavern, and they have all kinds of craft beer. So Puerto Rican craft beer, but also from, the mainland United States and all, Belgian beers and things like that. So they have like everything. They're a really good place to stop. And then also there's Cerveceria del Callejon, which is just kind of in a little alleyway in Old San Juan, and they brew their beer there. So they make more craft beer styles, hazies and stouts and things like that. So they're really cool, especially when you're in Old San Juan. And then when you get out kind of more into the rest of San Juan, there's a variety of breweries. I would highlight, Ocean Lab Brewing. They've got 2 locations now. So they just opened one in like a mall, I would say kind of in a suburby kind of area. But it's a really beautiful, beautiful location. And then they have one that's like on the beach, which is awesome. So that's great. I would highly recommend visiting there.
What are like the styles like there? Is it still like everywhere else where it's, here's your hazy IPA, or are they known for anything different?
Honestly, that's one thing I have been missing in a lot of places is a good hazy IPA. There are a few smaller craft breweries that are making them really well. A couple of them are Pura Vida, and they're out in the West Coast, and also Women Brewed, which I really love. And then Lupulos Hermanos, which is in Carolina, in like the San Juan area. They also make a good hazier, couple that I've tried. But There's a lot of mostly lower ABV beers. I think that's kind of typical you see in the Caribbean. Lagers or like wheat ales or fruited wheat ales or sours, things like that. I think are much more common here. And then, yeah, I'd say, pale ales and West Coast kind of IPAs,
Okay.
more so than hazies, which I love hazies. And so I'm craving that right now. That's one thing I'm definitely missing from the Chicago beer scene.
I'll have to send some Hop Butcher along with the space heat or something. What else, would you recommend for people to do when they go to San Juan or they go to Puerto Rico? Are there restaurants that you definitely would tell people this is a place you need to go to, or certain sightseeings that, maybe wouldn't be in a travel book somewhere?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I will say the Puerto Rican food I really enjoy. A lot of plantains and pork and I don't know, it's all delicious. And I will say in Old San Juan, a lot of things are really more overpriced and harder to get into, right? And more things you need to get reservations and stuff because it's just a lot busier. But when you get more out into the rest of San Juan, it's a little bit easier to get places, and I think food's a little bit higher quality, lower price. So we have a restaurant. It's near Calle Loiza, which is a really popular street of bars and restaurants, cafes, all that kind of stuff. That's near where we're staying. And they have it's a restaurant called Bebo's. And it's very, I feel reasonably priced, very, I don't know, just very bare bones, basic looking kind of place. But the food is incredible. Just very classic Puerto Rican dishes. They always have specials on. And they have Ocean Lab Brewing, which is quite nice. So we've been there quite a few times. That's where we went for New Year's Eve for dinner, just to get some good classic Puerto Rican food.
Cool.
I would say there for sure. And then in general, I just would recommend either going on a tour or renting a car and seeing more of the island.
Okay.
There's certainly so much to do and see in Old San Juan, but I feel or in San Juan in general, but I feel being able to go and see the El Yunque, the rainforest, and seeing the other coasts and seeing the beaches and things, I think I would also highly recommend.
Would you recommend people to stay at a bigger hotel, or what's the Airbnb situation there?
Yeah, so we have only stayed at Airbnbs. Yeah, I guess in Puerto Rico so far. So I would recommend Airbnbs. They seem pretty good. I mean, always there's the controversy of not trying to take away, space for locals and things like that. So just be considerate of that, looking to rent from a Puerto Rican person as opposed to from a big company or something like that, I think is always what I would recommend. There are plenty of hotels though. To me, they skew on the more expensive side. I think that's what to be expected, though, from a tropical Caribbean destination. People are coming down here to vacation. So there's a lot of beautiful properties, though. So if that's something you're into, I think it's very well worth the money. But I think you could get a little bit more in the culture and, in the neighborhoods with an Airbnb. That's kind of what I prefer.
How did you get started in beer? How did you become a beer lover? Do you remember the first craft beer or beer that you've had in general that it made you just say, oh shit, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, I mean, so this is funny. As a college kid, I didn't like beer. I thought it was gross, but I was surrounded by, Busch Light and Keystone Light, and still don't like those. So that's not a surprise, I guess. But in my later college years, I kind of started exploring. There was a really good beer bar in my college town, but they had 40 taps. And so they had a 40 tap tour, and the goal was to drink through all of them. Not in one night or anything, but just, as you had time. So doing that kind of really exposed me to a lot of different beers. And I feel one of the first ones, we didn't have it in Iowa, but when I would come to, that's where I'm originally from, is Iowa. When I would come to Chicago, one of the first craft beers I remember loving is Revolution Rosa, the hibiscus ale. That's still one of my ultimate favorite beers. And that was kind of when I was wow, this beer thing is really cool. You can make this beer taste all kinds of different flavors, kind of a thing. So that really got me into it. And then from there, kind of just tasting and trying out and going and visiting new places. And it's always a fun time.
Now, you mentioned on your email that you sent out the other day from your website that last year you and your partner were in 43 different beds. How does that work out? Because bedding is important. So do you have any horror stories of travel and bedding?
Oh God. That's a good question. I will say this is just the first thing that comes to mind. Well, two things. The first thing that comes to mind though is so many sheets like don't fit on mattresses, and so you wake up with like the sheet half up, and it's like it would be fine if it was my mattress, but it is not. It is like strangers sleep on this all the time. Like it kind of weirds me out and grosses me out. So that's a big pet peeve of mine personally. And there's never enough pillows. I like pillows. And it's definitely been an adventure trying to be able to make sure we can actually sleep wherever we go. You know, like actually be able to have a nice quiet room and a comfy bed and things like that. So
yeah, I remember my wife and we went to Mexico City like 6-7 years ago, and we did the Airbnb thing. It was a beautiful high-rise condo. So we had the whole condo. We get into the bed and it's like a concrete floor. I thought I was being punked, but people were like, no, we like our mattresses really firm here. This is like laying on plywood. It was like the worst 5 nights of my life trying to sleep on this thing.
Yeah, I think we haven't had anywhere that's been too bad. Luckily, I'm trying to think. I guess there was one. This was now a couple years ago in Thailand, and I was sick. I had got some sort of stomach thing. So admittedly, that was where I stayed, was this bed for like 2 whole days. And so I have lots of complaints, basically the same thing. It was just like hard. It was solid. And I was like, and like a little thin pillow. And I was like, how do people do this? But my partner was fine with it. He was like, no, it was totally fine. His memory of the bed is totally different. And I'm like, no, can't do that again.
No, I'm a big guy. I need to sink a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I need a little cushion. Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you have like favorite cities to travel to?
Well, San Juan has definitely become one for sure. That's like, we're talking about in the future, you know, should we like sign a lease? You know, should we kind of move here at least for a year and kind of test it out? So there for sure. And I would say in general, right, we look for craft beer. We look for beer places. So, you know, Denver's a good place. I personally really love Portland. I love the beer scene and the coffee scene, and then the public transportation just is incredible. It's very well connected, gets you wherever you need to go. It's easy, which I really appreciate, and especially appreciate with not having a car and also drinking beer, so being able to get home safe. Those are always good things. Yeah, and then I mean now like going back to Chicago is always amazing. I'm always so excited, and yeah, to go to Benny's and grab whatever the new hot butcher is, and I'm all set. I'm good.
Any international cities you love?
Oh, yes. We surprisingly, we went to Italy and Spain this past year, and really fell in love with Genoa. It's on the kind of on the coast in the north of Italy. It's just like a really cool little town. And honestly, surprisingly had really great craft beer.
Okay.
So that's like, I was very impressed by the Italian craft beer. Like it was great. And then the other city that I think we both love is Valencia in Spain. So kind of same thing. It's on the beach, on the coast. Doesn't have as much good craft beer, but there's some there. But you know.
Yeah, but you're on a coast.
Sangria. Yeah.
You'll suffer with something else because you're on the coast in Italy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What would you say would be your best travel tip for somebody that's not a big traveler? What's one tip you would give someone to make their travel experience a little easier?
Oh, that's a really good question. Let's see. To me,
we don't want to say pre-check because the lines get long enough. So forget pre-check.
Yeah. I mean, I do definitely benefit from that. I do like a good pre-check moment. I think it's just kind of what I would say is know what is worth spending money on for you, if that makes sense. So like for me, I have started to value having like status on airlines and things. So like being able to have the ability to sit up front, like sit up closer to the front at least in the plane and not have to pay extra necessarily for it, but also like being willing to pay for the United or Delta fare or whatever, as opposed to going for, a budget airline. That would be my top tip. Just know what you value and put your like energy and money towards that.
Cool. Yeah.
Because you're never going to get to it all. Like,
No.
It's just, you're not.
Well, I mean, you can because you're in Puerto Rico for 3 months, so you'll hit it all. But yeah, most people, if they're going
But I feel like I feel like I don't even have enough time to get to it all still. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There's always something else.
Yeah, you mentioned coming back to Chicago and you mentioned Rev earlier. What are some other Illinois breweries that you miss while you're traveling? Like, you sit there and go, I really wish I could have this beer right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely a Hot Butcher, like any double dry hop hazy IPA from them all the time. I would love that. Dovetail is my favorite lager brewery, so to have their Pilsner, and I know there's Pilsners everywhere and everything, but they're like, a good Pilsner is different. So Dovetail, and then I would also say Phase 3, I miss their hazies and their like pastry stouts and all the fun stuff as well. And one thing I definitely miss, and this is more generalized, they don't really have hop water down here. We haven't seen it. So that's one thing I miss, whether it's Noon Whistle or Revolution or whatever, any of the hop waters that are made,
Actually, have you had the Hop Butcher's hop water? Because that's really good.
No, I haven't.
It came out, I think, before you left, but it was just, I don't think it was available.
Okay.
You could pick it up at Binny's. And like, I walked the Hop Butcher, so I just walked and picked it up. And I think they put it back out again for dry January, but that's a really good one too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I love that. I mean, like, I feel like when the place knows what to do with hops, they've got to make a good hop water,
Well, where can people find you on social media and all that? I know your website is lovechristinarose.com. You're also the newest member of the Beer Media Group. So for people that want to get a hold of you, you could find her there. If you need her to promote your product or beer somewhere exotic, Christina's your gal. But where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, definitely. I would say definitely. Feel free. Anybody needs to fly me anywhere, I would be happy to go. But yeah, so like you mentioned my website, lovechristinarose.com. Still working on getting into the flow of blogging more regularly, but I enjoy it. It's fun. Primarily on Instagram. Again, Love Christina Rose there. Lots of reels, photos, all the things. Freshie Fridays on Fridays when I can make it happen. So beer reviews there as well. And then, less beer related things, more just random thoughts that I have, but I'm also on Threads. So good follow me there as well.
Awesome. Well, Christina, thank you so much. It was nice to talk to you, not in person, but via computer screen here. Enjoy the rest of your time in San Juan. Please, get a tan for me while you're there, while the rest of us are here shivering.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
All right, I got a deal for Beer in Front listeners. Big Fork Brands. I'm a big fan of them, and I've been a fan of Big Fork for 10 years now. I remember I first had, get this, they make a sausage, and it's bacon sausage. I remember 2014, so it's now 11 years ago, I saw this at Riot Fest. I'm like, bacon sausage? Put it in my mouth. Absolutely. Phenomenal. I've been eating their stuff for years, and now I got a deal for Beer in Front listeners where you could pick up some of their products, save yourself some money, and it also helps the show out where I get a commission on sales. But not only do they make bacon sausage, they have beef jerky that's phenomenal. They got a new thing out there. It's a sauce. It's called the Chicago sauce. The Chicago sauce is the 7 toppings to a classic Chicago hot dog. So this has everything from, the sport peppers and, onion and relish. It's blended into a sauce. So you could put that on your hot dog to have a Chicago hot dog if you don't have all of that stuff handy. So I'm going to include a link in the show notes. Use my code in the cart. You could save yourself some money. Once again, it helps the show out. I have not had the Chicago sauce yet. I sent some out to a friend of mine. I'm going to get a report back from him. But like the bacon sausage is phenomenal. That you got to pick up. Everything else I've had from them has been great. But if you want that hot dog sauce, this has pickles, tomatoes, onions, mustard, the sweet relish, sport peppers, and celery salt, all in one sauce. So check out the link in the show notes and pick you up some Big Fork. After talking to Love Christina Rose, I had to have a hazy IPA as the beer in front. So I'm going to do Beezer from Old Irving, a classic. And it's usually in my fridge or in my cabinet, so I don't have to go too far to grab a Beezer. This checks in at a nice 6.9% alcohol. They use Citra Mosaic hops here. This has won a gold medal at the Great American Beer Festival as well, so don't just listen to me. Listen to the judges. They know. So let's crack open Beezer. Beezer's beautiful color, good foam here. Really good aroma. Like you pick up everything from that. The aroma just hits you right up front. Smells fantastic. Yeah, the taste is really good. You get all those hop notes that just hit you right up front. Good finish on this. Everything about this beer is great. I know every now and then they put out a double Beezer and a triple from time to time. Those are solid as well. But if you're in the Chicago area or where Old Irving distributes, I would definitely grab Beezer, put it in your cart. All right, that's going to wrap things up for this edition of Beer in Front. I thank you very much for listening. If you want to get a hold of me, please email me, dave@beerinfront.com. If you have any ideas or show suggestions, once again, I want to thank Love Christina Rose for coming on, talking about the great beer scene over in Puerto Rico. Check her out on social media at Love Christina Rose. Have a great couple of weeks, everyone. I'll talk to you in 2 weeks, and remember, sometimes the beer in front of you is the best one yet.